So wonderful to see you again, Sid, and it's wonderful to be able to talk to your audience and to talk to all those people who support the ZOA. It's critical, it's crucial that we get the vote out because if we don't manage to get the numbers, then we won't have the seats in the WZO, and we won't be able to do the wonderful, the great things that we discussed earlier that need to be done for the Jewish people, not just for Israel, but for the Jewish people across the diaspora, across the Jewish world.
Across the whole world. And Rabbi Dunner, I know you've got a British accent, I can tell. And my daughter, my one and only daughter, my oldest child, she goes to university in Wales. She goes to Cardiff University. So I go to London quite a bit, and I make that 90-minute fast train ride over to Wales. And I got to tell you, it's kind of our subject, but the amount of anti-Semitism in London, in the UK, in Wales. My daughter was doxxed the last visit we made to Israel. She was doxxed. She's gotten death threats. I've gotten death threats. Alan Dershowitz had to hire Anthony Julius, the attorney for Princess Diana, just to sue the school. So we talk about anti-Semitism, obviously in Israel. We've seen the attacks here at universities in the United States. But you're a UK guy, and you've got plenty of that in your own country.
Well, you know what? It's not just in the UK, Sid. I mean, of course, it's anti-Semitism since October 7th has reared its ugly head. It's always simmering below the surface. I don't need to tell you that. You come from Brooklyn. I'm sure you experienced it growing up in one way or another. We remember that Rabbi Kahana was extremely strong on the streets to make sure that there were teams of Jewish kids who would protect Jewish neighborhoods, and how important that was. But now, since October 7th, it's reared its ugly head in a way that we've actually never seen in our lifetimes. And it's a completely new phenomenon for us. But we need to face it. We need to realize that Israel is our home. And without the protection of the army and the government and the country, the state of Israel, Jews across the world, doesn't matter where we are, but you're in New York, I'm in Los Angeles, in Beverly Hills, you may be in the UK, we are all afforded the protection of having a country so that our nation, as scattered as we are across the world, can hold our heads up proudly and say that our country is Israel. No one will ever take it away from us. And our protection, our identity is totally fortified by the existence of the state of Israel in a way that our grandparents and great-grandparents did not have when they suffered these same anti-Semitic attacks in the 20s and 30s leading up to the Holocaust. We will never let it happen again, and never again means never again. And now we have to fight. Just today, there was at CSUN, there was a speaker, Charlie Kirk. I'm sure you know who that is.
Charlie very
and
well.
My son led a group of protesters. He's got the Iron Initiative, a group of kids who can be called to spot protests, counter the Palestinian, the pro-Palestinian, the communists, the lefties, who are trying to overwhelm us with their messaging, with anti-Semitism. They're funded by Qatar. They're funded by wealth from outside this country. They should be deported. They should be sanctioned. And anybody who's involved in this anti-Semitism needs to be identified and needs to be treated in the way that ought to be done by the law.
I will tell you this, Rabbi. You brought up Rabbi Kahani, and you brought up the ADL. You know, when I was a kid in Brooklyn, I mentioned this earlier in tonight's rally. The ADL were the tough guys, you know, Rabbi, and the JDL were tough guys.
The JDL, not the ADL, the JDL.
The JDL were very tough. They bash your face in. No, even the ADL was different, you know, going back all those years ago. But, you know, I just did a story with a young lady named Linda Sadako, who's part of our group here, for the World Israel News just last Sunday. And the interview, she interviewed me, and I basically said, I need the Jewish people to be tougher. This is where groups like ZOA are so important, because we're not afraid of anything. We're not intimidated by anybody. We only want to make sure the Jews are going to be safe and happy. But as a whole, Rabbi, I think you'd agree, the Jewish people around the world, we need to get tougher, no?
We definitely do. You know, I brought here to show to your audience books that I have on my shelf. This is Menachem Begin's book, White Nights. Menachem Begin, one of our heroes. And here is the most important book, The Revolt by Menachem Begin, in which he writes exactly what the feelings need to be in this the Zionist movement began in 1897, Theodor Herzl, but they were softies. And it took the revisionists, Vladimir Jabotinsky, Menachem Begin, and all the people around the Irgun Tzvai Leumi Etzel, to bring the state of Israel into being and to make sure that Jews could stand up proud, be who they needed to be against their enemies. There will always be enemies. Sid, there's always going to be enemies. There's always going to be those who hate Jews. They blame us for this. They blame us for that. It makes no difference. They'll always hate us. But we shouldn't cower behind the fence. We shouldn't go to them and say to them, what can we do to make you happy? We're never going to make them happy. The only thing that they understand is strength, and we must be strong. The ZOA is a broad tent. You don't need to be religious. I'm an Orthodox Jew. You don't need to be Orthodox to vote for the ZOA. And you don't need to be non-Orthodox to vote for the ZOA. Everybody, it's a broad tent. As we heard earlier on in the short video clip, you can be Sephardi, you can be Ashkenazi, you can be in Brooklyn, you can be in Los Angeles, you can be in the UK, you can be wherever you are. And I want all of your audience members to think of 10, 20, 30 friends who need to be voting for Slate 15 in the WZO to make sure that we get the votes that we need. I want you to make those calls. I want you to send those texts. I want you to contact those people to make sure that they register and they vote, and their vote counts, so that we get the number of seats that we need to make our voices heard, and that they feel the strength of the ZOA in the WZO, and that we can make our voices heard in a way that will make a difference for the Jewish people and for the state of Israel.
I need more guys like you on the East Coast, Rabbi. I'm begging you. I mean, I was at a shul on Park Avenue a couple of weeks ago. You'll appreciate this. They renamed the street Yad Vashem Way. It was lovely. Then I went inside the shul, and there were 5 liberals who spoke. I had to walk out midway through the whole ceremony. They're Jewish people, but they just don't share the same values that I do. No. And just to show you, to emphasize your point about it doesn't matter what type of Jew you are, I was bar mitzvahed in a Reformed temple. I grew up a basically Reformed Jew in Brooklyn, New York. Now, of course, since October the 7th, I become an animal. And this is all I really talk about and care about, is protecting Jewish people as I can in the city.
We're the Jewish people. Sid, we're the Jewish people. And unfortunately, those who are liberal-minded, progressive-minded, have abandoned their roots. They've abandoned their heritage. Right. They've abandoned their Jewish legacy. And they feel that they need to be apologetic for their Jewish identity. We don't need to apologize. We've got nothing to apologize for. We are a 3,500-year-old people. We have survived every single attack that they've thrown against us. We will continue to survive. And now that we've got our state, we'll never let it go. We will fight for it proudly. We have somebody now in the White House who is speaking up for the Jewish people, sometimes more loudly than the Jews do, unfortunately. But we back him all the way. We have the voice. We must get heard, and we must make sure. Don't sit there and watch Rabbi Dunner and watch Sid and think to yourself, oh, it's so lovely what they're saying. It sounds so great, but I can't do anything. Absolutely not. You can make a difference. Every single person watching this can make a difference. Phone up your friends, text your friends, email your friends, say, why aren't you registered for Slate 15 of the WZO election? Make sure that what's in your heart, what's in your head, what you believe is going to be the action that the Jewish people take for themselves and for the Jewish world.
What a great message, Rabbi Dunner. You are a spectacular, not good, a spectacular guest and friend here tonight. Thank you so much. You heard the rabbi. Slate 15, ZOA, voting starts midnight Sunday into Monday morning. We're already getting a whole bunch of folks committed to doing a whole bunch of voting. Rabbi, thank you so much.
Bottom of the screen. I'm watching it flow to the bottom of the screen. I'm so delighted for all of you. Thank you to all those who've already committed. Now we need more of you. Get on there and do what you need to do.
God bless you, Rabbi. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sid. Bye-bye.
There's still hope for California. Look at that. Who knew, right? I mean, Kamala Harris comes from California. But the rabbi did a fantastic job right there. We've got more guests before we wrap this wonderful rally up. We're going to toss it over now to a video, I think. Let's do this. Let's check out this latest video, then 2 more live guests before we call it quits.